vote to support it.
So this past season, we're finishing the year with 19 ice hockey players. It was the first year in a long time that we didn't have a JV ice hockey team. The MIA suggests if the number is below 23 to think about applying for an 8th grade waiver. So looking ahead to next year, it looks like we're going to have approximately 13 returning ice hockey players. Of those 13, one would be a senior, 11 juniors, 1 sophomore.
Wow.
I talked to Coach Reed about incoming freshmen next year, and incoming freshmen would be approximately 4 to 6 freshmen. So best case scenario, next year, we would start the year with approximately 19 players. And we really want to get that JV program back. And we also want to get above that 23 number that the MIA suggests before applying for an 8th grade waiver. Looking at the current 7th grade class, so 8th graders next year, we could have approximately 6 8th graders that would be interested in playing ice hockey next year. There is another school that we play that's in the same division as us, that's Ludlow High School, that has an 8th grade waiver. I talked to their athletic director. He said it's working really well. They have some of the 8th graders playing JV. They have some of the more talented and physically prepared 8th graders playing at the varsity level. And they had good feedback with that. And those are the numbers. And the reason why we're talking about this so early is because a lot of the current 7th graders that are going to be 8th graders next year, they need to make a decision between playing club hockey and high school hockey. And they need to make that decision in early March. So that's kind of why it's on the agenda now.
Coach Reed, any idea why the numbers are low?
I honestly don't know. I've been doing it 16 years. I've never seen it like this.
Yeah.
Just a big drop off in kids playing hockey in this cycle. You know, my son's in youth hockey, and it's a little bit more kids from East Long Meadow. We have about 7 on our youth team right now.
Okay.
But I've never seen it like this. It's just a cycle.
It seems like though between swimming and wrestling, and now we hear about hockey, is there one sport that's just exploding? I mean, is it?
I would say indoor track and outdoor track
Really?
numbers are extremely high. I also think those 3 sports are very sport-specific type sports where those student athletes most likely have been swimming since 1st grade, playing ice hockey since 1st grade, so very specific skills in those sports.
Yeah.
The athletic subcommittee recommends this. 2 other reasons that other than you heard. First, Coach Reed and AD Mr. McGee have both said that they're going to adjust the schedule next year. Yeah. So they will not be playing Division I schools in the schedule. There's also possible for appeal for realignment a year from now, am I correct?
Correct.
And secondly, I had the opportunity to bump into Lou Conti, who's PVIZ Executive Secretary, and he says we're on the cutting wave. There's other schools that are going to be doing the same thing in the next couple of years. So we're just kind of ahead of the wave a little bit right now.
Wow.
So as a subcommittee, we recommend this move.
Maybe that's something we should discuss even with the rec department. I mean, certain sports aren't, I understand there's an expense to hockey.
Right.
But some of the other sports, they're not really expensive sports, and maybe it's a conversation we should have to have. Or how are we not engaging these kids to start these things sooner, you know?
I don't know, or maybe just things become cyclical.
I think it's, you know, I asked that same question to Coach Reed when we met, and, you know, what you said was you seem to think that this is just a downturn.
Yeah, just a downturn. I'm hoping it goes.
Or maybe you
Yeah.
get an upswing after like a Olympic season like we've just had, and, you know, typically.
It's hard to say why, you know.
You can start a bobsled team.
Yeah, we can start a bobsled team.
Or curling, curling.
We have the courts?
We should start a curling team.
Yeah, we should.
That's good. Where can we put that? You can't put that on the same rink, though, right?
No,
Put it in our courtyard.
there you go. Future discussion.
Yeah.
So I'll move that we approve the 8th grade hockey waiver as requested.
Okay, motion's been made
I'll second it.
and seconded. Any further
That's
discussion?
next year's 8th graders.
Next year's.
Next year's 8th graders. All right, good luck with it. And so let's just get a vote on that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And that carries forward 5-0.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so good luck with that.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Keep us updated.
Okay, the second item that we're gonna do right now is 7.3, the East Long Meadow High School Science Department field trip for Costa Rica. So do I have 2 there, or just?
Okay, so first, I
So
think that
welcome.
you guys, thank you. First, I think you guys did get a program for it.
Yes.
Yeah, we got everything in the
Yep, we got
packet.
everything.
Yeah, but now.
There is an actual itinerary on it, but it's kind of fuzzy, so if you want an actual itinerary, I did bring some. So that's more of your discretion, if you do want one, I will gladly come around.
It wasn't too
I'm
bad.
all right.
Well, you're gonna have to come back a year from now if the trip,
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
trip is,
absolutely.
it does
Yeah.
run, so you
Okay.
can see them.
So I just brought some in case anybody wanted
No,
to
we're good.
actually be able to read the itinerary. So what I'm proposing is to go on a trip to Costa Rica. I wanted to do this trip for a couple of reasons, but one of the main reasons I really wanted to do this trip was I started to, last year I revived the greenhouse, and I started to have my students actually grow plants in them. And I noticed how much the students loved their plants. They got to see something genuinely grow. They got to see something that was actually theirs. They got to have their own experience. And so I thought that if they actually got to go somewhere and experience all of these really cool things on their own, that could actually mean something to them. And so going to somewhere that you see in picture books all the time, you see photos of Costa Rica in basically any textbook that you see, actually going there and experiencing these things that could make a huge impact on any student that would go. And so I looked into a ton of different tour places, and I really liked EF the best. And I was working with Bonnie and with Steve with this, and I was working with the history department with this to try to come up with how we could grab as many students who would possibly be able to go. I looked at a ton of standards, so looking at next generation science standards, this covers 8 standards, like specifically, easily covers 8 standards. I'm sure it covers way more standards than just 8, if I was really trying to nitpick. It covers 5 standards, looking at the American Council for the Teaching of Foreign Language Standards. It covers 9 standards, looking at the National Council of Social Studies Standards. EF is one of the oldest tour places, going international. They actually started in Costa Rica, I believe, so this is one of their main places to actually go on tours with students, so they're very, very used to giving tours specifically to high school students. They have this huge safety program. They have this guarantee that if somebody gets injured, or if there's this huge liability thing that they will cover up to, I think it's either $5 million or $50 million. If something ends up happening, they completely cover up to $50 million if something was to go wrong. So they're the company that I've trusted the most. I looked into a ton of different companies, and they're really the ones that I haven't seen any complaints with, other than there were a bunch of parent complaints saying, oh, I went on this trip and the tour guides didn't seem to discipline the students. And I was like, well, that's what the chaperones are for. So it's not their job. So that isn't really a complaint to me.
Ms. McGivney, an
Yes.
obvious question. I'm assuming this is during April vacation?
Yes,
And is Ms. Rivera also one of the chaperones?
yes. So I wanted to make sure we had somebody Spanish speaking, Ms. Rivera. If we have enough students, we would also have Heather Berkevich. She also used to live in Nicaragua, so she also speaks Spanish, and it is a country that is right next to, is the neighbor country of Costa Rica, so she would also be a really awesome chaperone to help out.
How many
So-
students do you anticipate might be interested?
I would like a minimum of 12 students. I would see about 15 students to 18 students going. I would hopefully like to see 18 students
Sure.
going, so we could have
Okay.
all 3.
Under 20, though, is the stipulation from the tour company?
They have
Based on
a
the price?
maximum.
Is that what it is?
They have a maximum of 36, so you can get 36 students to sign up.
So we haven't done a Costa Rica trip before at the high school?
We have.
Oh, you have?
I think we've done 4 or 5.
I'm not sure, I know that Steve went twice in the past.
Twice.
And this would be a different tour group then that you're going with than from the other times?
No,
It's
this
the
is
same one?
the
This is
same.
the same one.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
But I did look into, because I've never done it, and I'm the.
Okay, that's
I'm
why
the
I was
leader,
asking
yeah.
these questions, because it made it sound like it hadn't been done. And so you find the price point was very similar to what had been in the past? Obviously, it might be increased because it's been a couple of years.
Right.
And for what it includes,
Mhm.
the
Oh, yeah.
kids need spending money, and that's it. Every meal is paid for, everything is paid
Yep.
for. And we're not going to any shopping malls, you know,
Right.
it'd be little
Yeah.
souvenir shops here and there,
Right.
so.
Well, I make a motion to approve the Costa Rica trip the week of April 12th through the 21st, 2019, with Ms. McGee, Ms. Rivera returning once they have finalized all the details.
A second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That carries forward 5-0.
Let us know if you need a school committee representative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna move right back up again to presentations. We have 5.1.1, the district-wide mid-cycle presentation.
Okay.
So if we can have our.
Invite our leadership team up. In your packets, I
Welcome.
think you have all the individual slides, but this is our opportunity as people assemble to report out on what's been going on in the East Long Meadow Public Schools, and specifically what's been going on in regard to our action steps and our goals.
And get cozy, we can squeeze in.
Oh, yeah,
Good evening.
plenty of room.
Everybody in? Okay, great.
Hold on. Still adjusting. Sometimes it's in.
All set? Mr. Mackey, all set?
I'm ready.
Okay. So as I said, this is our mid-cycle presentation. Give all of you and everyone who's watching an idea of what's been going on in East Long Meadow Public Schools, and more specifically with regard to our goals and action steps. And just a quick review of our SMART goals. These are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely goals that we try to establish each year, and that we always want to reflect that we're accounting for every student as we set goals. Our mission is that we want to make sure that we're always promoting achievement and accountability in all that we do as we educate today for the challenges of tomorrow. We also feel that if we strengthen our core instruction and we maintain, this is probably more important than ever given some of the recent events, a safe, nurturing, and respectful learning environment, and develop collaborative leadership across the district, that we will prepare our students to have strong 21st century skills and be able to go out into the world and become active, engaged citizens. With that said, let's take a look at just some of our aggregate data across the district. So these are the aggregate scores, combined scores, grades 2 through 8. If you look at our STAR reading, you see in the fall we had roughly 72% at or above the proficient level, and we had about 28% on an aggregate level below. We've notched that up slightly at the midpoint to 77% and 22% as we've done our most recent winter assessments, and I'm sure as we get to individual building presentations, they can speak to interventions and so forth. The math, at least on the STAR, has been a little bit better, where we started with 85% and 15% in the fall, and now we've notched up to 88% and 12% with the winter assessment.
So I know you'll see some middle school data on growth later on in the presentation, so we wanted to give you a quick glimpse of grades 2 through 5 growth for ELA and math, and this is on the STAR assessment. You want to see a range, a minimum of 40. 40 is considered average, 40 to 60. 60 would be, and above would be at the high range. We continue to, at each grade level, be in the mid to high range for growth, and that's really what we try to focus on, is that our students are growing at a good rate, and then, let's see if that is there. Wanted to give you a quick update on the district benchmark assessments. Right now, all grades continue to utilize data from either 2 or 3 assessments. In the elementary schools, it's ELA and math primarily, and then all other content areas at your secondary schools. The schools are continuing to kind of refine and develop meeting space for departments to come together in order to take a look at this data as well as formative data from classrooms in order to inform instruction. So they continue to kind of refine their schedules for that. Grades 4 and 5 this year will take the first tech-enhanced DBAs in ELA and math this March. And then we are in the process of moving to tech-enhanced DBAs for all grades through 10, 3 through 10, for ELA and math, and that'll be completed and beginning in March, in the fall of 2000.
Define
I should say
tech
18.
enhanced.
That's my question.
Fall of 2018.
Now, what's the tech enhanced?
So it'll mirror the same platform that they take the assessments for MCAS online. So tech enhanced doesn't just mean, so if I'm taking a computer-based assessment, I might just be clicking the multiple choice. If I'm doing tech enhanced, there's other tools, there's drag and drop, so I have to click and drag things. For my answers, I may have a 2-part question. In math, I might have an equation editor that I have to use, so it's a little bit more tech tools.
It's all on Google Chrome.
They can take it right through the Chromebooks, yes.
Thank you.
We actually had professional development, I think it comes up later on in the presentation, but we had on November 7th, professional development from Mastery Connect. And then certainly as we become more comfortable with technology in our classroom on a daily basis, teachers are exploring different ways to assess students on using the computer.
So we wanted to give you, and this probably is better on your own screen than up here, but just a quick glimpse of trackers and what they look like at the in Mastery Connect for our DBAs at the teacher level. It's much more teacher-driven than it is district-driven, and kind of want it that way. So those teachers who are utilizing Mastery Connect a little bit more are able to see both their DBA data in there, and that would be in that dark gray bar, and they can compare it to how their students are progressing on their own formative assessments that they may have uploaded or taken in Mastery Connect. And so we're giving you a quick snippet from a first grade small group instruction in math, and then we want to show you the opposite, which would be a high school course, and kind of what they see. So we blocked off, obviously, names, but each row would be an individual student. And so the color codes are for if I'm the teacher and I've given my own assessment, I can see how they've done by standard, the purple bar on that larger high school one, those are the standards. The dark gray would be where a DBA would be. If I'm a teacher and I created my own multiple standard assessment, that would be the light gray. So they have it real clear, and these are very interactive, so they can click right in and see how many assessments, which assessments went into each one of these ratings. So just wanted to give you a glimpse of what that looks like.
Are those actually student numbers, the light gray? Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
They are not entire student numbers, no. So
But
there's
they're
no
partial student numbers?
Partial, right. I
And
cut
does
it
the
so they
student
use the
number
whole
stay with
thing.
the student all the way through? Must.
It's our student ID, yeah,
All the way through, okay.
it pulls from our
Yep.
system, but I cut half of them so you weren't seeing.
Okay.
Yeah.
double.
Okay. And I'm sorry, just explain the furthest right gray column with the percentages.
So that's if I gave a multi-standard assessment, and as a teacher, it's going to come into that bar there, so I can see how they did on the multi-standards.
Oh, okay.
And then it flows into the color-coded for individual standards, but that's the overall on that. Dark gray would be district-based.
Oh, okay, so that's why the other one doesn't have that.
Yeah. So the next couple of slides just give you a comparison. These are just on next generation MCAS. And so we kind of wanted to show you, we've done in the past where we are kind of in the mix with both LPVC and the DART. The first blue bar, or dark red for ELPS, is ELA, and the second bar, or green for everyone else, lighter red for ELPS, is where we kind of fell out in our distribution of for math. And I just want to point out that between second and third, there was only a 1 percentage point difference. So that we're really close
You
there.
couldn't put us there and just.
Yeah, next time,
It is
fuzz it
what-
up a little.
Yeah, it is what it is.
No, I know.
But what's not here,
Very
and we didn't
close.
want to give you 18 other slides or even, to try to condense things. I just wanted to give you a talking point around growth, because
I prefer growth, yeah.
So for growth, along with the LPVC, we were second highest for growth in ELA, and we were third highest for growth in math.
What grades, again, next generation of what grades?
3 through 8.
3 through, yes.
So does not include high school data?
Correct, it will in the future.
Thank you.
Now, the schools that we're comparing, are those MCAS scores? Like with
These are just next generation MCAS, correct.
Okay.
Yep. And then we also compared with our DART, And again, this is with the new assessment, the next generation, so this is 3 through 8. And we were second for ELA again with our DART cohort and 5th for math. And again, with the DART, the LPVC tells the districts
Right.
around us. The DART provides information on districts that we are similar to in demographics and financial information. That's how the Department of Ed separates you into DART cohorts. So these are similar
Desi
districts.
compares us, right?
Have they stayed consistent through the years, even now that we've changed
A
over
few
to the new
changed, like
MCAS?
Lunenburg is different, Billerica was different, a few others have stayed there for, Stoneham's been
Been there.
consistent, Seacon's
Tewksbury's
yeah.
been there.
And have we
Foxborough's
fallen
been
within that same range too, in
second.
order, because you are sort of putting them?
They are, yeah, they are
Right.
according to ELA, and then not to give you a second slide, I just put math right next to it.
Oh, okay,
But, so it is in order for the blue bars.
okay.
So yes, last year we were around the same place, second, third.
What do you know about Foxborough? They're one.
Foxborough actually
they're
was
first
up
and
higher
last.
on the.
Yeah,
the-
isn't that weird?
Why,
the,
what are they doing in
original
math? What are they
MCAS.
not doing?
Yeah,
in
yeah,
ELA?
that picked up on, I picked up on that too. I do not know, I have not reached
Yeah.
out to them, but
It's
that
interesting.
was an interesting
Both
point for
ends of the
sure.
spectrum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to have a conversation.
Hyper-focused,
They could
maybe.
probably
I was just gonna say,
explain
you could see
it.
where they're, maybe they're focusing.
Yeah.
A lot of engineering down
We'll
in
see,
Foxborough.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, there is.
We're getting there.
With the one where we came first.
The
time,
LPVC one.
I'd wanna know what number 1 was doing with theirs, cause.
That's easy to
They
find
are
out.
who
We
they
took the
are.
names off the LPVC to
Yeah, well,
protect the innocent and or guilty.
Right.
We didn't do the same, with our dark carper, we did.
Well, this is all, this is all
We can't go
on
knocking on their
the
doors.
state
Yeah.
website. You
The
can-
other thing
You
is,
can see that DESI compares
Right.
us to these.
Right,
Interestingly enough, the only LPVC district that had originally been compared with us in our DART comparison was Henry Wilbraham,
Yeah.
and they're no longer compared with us, so.
And they could have another year, you just don't know, but they
Right.
must have,
I find
that's
it-
2 years behind sometimes as
Right.
well, as far as
Right.
demographics.
Do they take, I'm just wondering, and this is on a side note, do they take, these are all Eastern Mass for the most part, and is it the same, do they take into account that it costs more to live there or here, or is it just?
They
They take
take
what
into
you
account-
spend.
Yeah, basically they take into account your district budget, they take into account your free and reduced.
Per
They take
pupil
into account your
expenditures.
per pupil expenditure, they take into account your percentage of special education students. They take into account, I don't know if they go to socioeconomics in terms of
Yeah, how far.
per capita.
Hmm.
They may do that
They
as
may.
well.
Oh, just curious.
So, yes,
But
so
it's-
they
And-
look at,
Yeah,
and they
but
try to
50,000
compare.
here goes a little further than 50,000.
but it's always been that
If
group that
going by
we've
head.
been in, you know,
We're
compared
similar-
to.
we're similar demographic.
The demographic overall, whatever their formula is, we're similar, so.
Right.
Because it's always the
Just a
same
few
schools.
players,
Right.
in and out.
Yeah.
right.
And I have to give Mrs. Anir some kudos, because DART is not updated with this current information, so she went digging much
Wow.
further than just to the DART website itself, and pulled this out for us. So, thank you. Just a quick summary of the district data, and then we're gonna be moving into hearing from our schools around the goals specifically, but we, as you can see, we continue to achieve well across the grade levels in ELA and math. We're hoping that we're going to continue to see that type of growth as we look at not only STAR, but also all our DBA data at the end of the year. We're seeing improvement fall to winter. Interesting that STAR seems to show improvement in math more significantly, and in ELA a little bit less so. And then we seem to do the reverse when we actually get to the state assessment. So that's something that we're watching as well. Our growth percentile, as Mrs. Anir pointed out, we want to be in that 40 to 60 percentile, and we're well within that at all grade levels, which was nice to see. And then certainly, as we look at the districts that the state compares us to, we're doing quite well on next generation MCAS, and that's due to some really good work, not only from all the people here, but all the people that are in our classrooms on a daily basis. All right, moving into our goals. Our first goal is centered on making sure that we're providing all our students a standards-based program, and that we're making sure that we're always aligned with the standards, whether they be our state standards or whether they be national standards. And just some key action steps that we've undertaken this fall into winter is that one of the new sets of standards that's come out from DESE is the Digital Literacy and Computer Science Frameworks. And as a leadership team, in partnership with our IT department, we're breaking out what those standards mean and how they project across grade levels, because they go down to kindergarten and they go all the way up to grade 12. And we're taking a pretty deep dive at looking at how do our current practices and how does our current curriculum lend itself to making sure that we're hitting these standards and giving students an opportunity to master them. So more on that as we go through the year. Social studies, you heard a decent amount about this in the fall. The draft of new standards is out, and Mrs. Neer is going to be working with the social studies department at the high school and the middle school, but also our teachers at the elementary level, to not only review these new standards in the draft, but make sure that we comment and offer feedback, because that window of opportunity is between January 23rd and April 2nd.
Is there anything new at the high school level for requirements?
Nothing that's too drastically new. Interestingly enough, the current draft places the civics course firmly at the 8th grade level.
Okay.
The departments will be giving feedback after their next department meeting. I've asked them to submit kind of what their thoughts are with a couple of questions, what it means for our current curriculum and maybe any revisions, just their general thought around it, and then once the standards are finalized, we'll talk about action steps to meet any of the, if there's any gaps that they think we might have. We'll do that after they've been approved and official.
And then something that you've heard a lot about over the years is, we used to call them our learning walks, but now they've taken on different names at the building level. But the really neat thing from my standpoint, and I guess using the term neat dates me quite a lot, so I'll have to come up with something new. The really groovy piece of this is that it's become part of our culture. That this is no longer something that's foreign to any of our teachers in any building, to have people come in and observe either for a short time, or probably more importantly, we now have people requesting to go see someone for a full period. And then they get a chance to follow up with that individual, and that's one of the best ways for us to get better. We're seeing that not only through our learning walks, but certainly our 2 professional development days have been all about colleagues teaching colleagues. Moving on, I think the elementary schools have designated one person to speak for each goal, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Okay.
So with this for school, we focused on the following action step. Staff will meet regularly in grade level subject area teams to analyze data, to plan instruction, and meet student needs. So these are pictures of the kindergarten team meeting with our literacy coach to analyze BAS benchmark assessment data. Teachers viewed a video of a student being assessed and completed a reading record. They worked collaboratively and discussed and compared their scores to help them calibrate and gain a deeper understanding of reading behaviors students have control of and behaviors they need to work on. From this data, instructional implications are discussed, and teachers can plan targeted instruction. This gives us an opportunity to refine our thinking. So this is just one example of how our staff meets regularly to analyze student data.
So for aligned action step number 2, which is students will create, collaborate, and or communicate utilizing technology, we're going to be highlighting some work going on at Mountain View. Mountain View students are creating, collaborating, and communicating using technology in every classroom and every subject throughout the school day. They're pretty close at this point to having a Chromebook for every student, and Elaine is pretty excited to be on the district collaborative committee where they're working on a one-to-one initiative for students in grades 3 through 12. What you're seeing in the pictures here is an example of how this technology is being utilized in the classroom. This is a small group of students in a reading classroom working with a paraprofessional. They are utilizing the Google Classroom app on the Chromebooks, along with Bloom's taxonomy, which is what you're seeing on the bottom left side there. They have some question starters and are creating questions, which they're then posting into Google Classroom. Students are then answering each other's questions. Those questions and answers can then be seen by all of the other students as well as the teacher, which is what you're seeing in the bottom right-hand picture there. Example of one of the questions that you might see students asking and answering is, which character would you most like to meet and why?
How close are we to the one-on-one, one-to-one?
In my building, I'm about 50 away.
Yeah.
Wow. I thought it was more, but
Good.
the PTO has been great. And I've used some money here and there to supplement too, so, and the district
Another
has
year?
provided, so hopefully by the end of the year.
And each one will have their own?
Well, it would be in the building. We're not talking yet.
For the
about-
younger kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
We'll work on an overall plan
Yeah.
as to how do we get there, but probably more importantly, how do we sustain it?
Right.
Yeah.
Because obviously, as you get a certain distance out, your purchase of however many machines will now have to be renewed. And that's where we have to look at budgeting and so forth.
But you have the mix of Chromebooks and iPads?
We also have iPads. We have 45 iPads. We don't use those as much for the Google Classroom
Right,
type
right.
of stuff. We use that more for apps, you know, to help them with math and things like that. We also have a MacBook cart currently too.
Okay, and this is Maple Shade's slide, and the action step. Staff will participate in a process that allows for peer observation and reflection. In the first picture, these two teachers are taking an online course with Tufts University in novel engineering. They are peer observing and co-teaching to refine this new practice that integrates engineering and collaboration with literature. The second picture is a collaboration of a teacher team that is creating the plans for a maker project utilizing batteries, magnets, LED lights, corrugated plastic, craft supplies, a magnetic whiteboard, and copper tape to create and investigate electricity.
There are a couple questions.
Yeah, sure.
But even though Meadowbrook presented the grade level analysis, the technology use, and the periodic reflection cuts across all three schools, am I correct?
Absolutely.
The second question, and this, I'm asking for an intuitive answer from Ms. Santinello and Mr. Fredette. The student growth percentage, why is there such a gain from 4th to 5th grade? That's phenomenal. You know, I'm not looking for an intuitive answer. I'm not looking for detailed content, here's what's going on.
So,
Why such a big gain?
so at the 4th grade, it's in the low 50s, and then 5th grade, it's in the low 60s.
High 60s. Oh, wait, mid-60s, okay,
Mid
yeah.
60s.
Intuitive.
I feel, this is, you know, I feel like the progression of the education that the children receive from 3rd all the way to 5th is exceptional. And by the time they're in 5th grade, they're absolutely ready for these standards that we intend for them to meet.
I would just say that historically, 4th grade, if you go back to the beginning of MCAS, has always had probably the lowest scores and growth statewide. It's always, 4th grade is always has lower, and I've never been able to figure out why. But I think it also goes along with what Mr. Fredette said, that they have 3 years of accumulated knowledge that they can then use. They're more developmentally prepared by 5th grade to
Is
take
that
that kind of
adage
test.
still true, that 4th grade is the first grade where they read to learn, where the first 3 grades they learn to read?
Usually they say that's 3rd grade.
3rd grade?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think it's changing.
So as far as goal 1 goes at Birchland Park, the first bullet is, you know, what we've been working on for years now is the DBAs. The big push this year is we're getting more and more of them to be computer-based, some tech-enhanced, some just computer-based. But what's really cool about it is it's giving teachers like immediate feedback. So it's nice to see teachers happy with using Mastery Connect to give these quicker, because that makes it happen more and more often. So I just had
Everyone realizes DBAs are district benchmark assessment.
Yeah.
I just had a math teacher today.
Huh?
Maybe our viewers at home.
Yeah, but it's good for repeating all the time, right?
For
So
thousands
we
of
have
viewers.
lots, right,
Yeah.
we have lots of
A lot of people watch us over the
The
weekend.
children love them, don't
good
they?
accommodation.
They just love DBAs.
Kids
they
love
just
DBAs. They
love
can't wait for
DBAs.
them. They can't wait.
And so
They do like them better on computers, though.
Yeah.
They do
sure
like
they
them on
do.
computers. And just today, anecdotally, a math teacher in 7th grade said they gave their DBA the week before vacation, and it used to take them like a week and a half to grade it all, and they had it done in 2 days. So it was just like this whole new world of how quick this can be. The second bullet point, Mr. Smith touched upon, but we really focus on the peer observations at Birchland, and we're very happy with the system we have. We had one walk around in October where everybody visits classrooms in our building. And then we just finished our first round of peer observations, which is where everybody goes to watch at least one full block. And we're finally getting to the point where we had 6 different other schools visited. So we had teachers go to Summers Middle School, Glenbrook Middle School, West Springfield Middle School, along with Maple Shade, Mountain View, and the high school. So just great to see the teachers getting out of the building to go watch other teachings. And we just started the second round, so February through May. They have to do another one, and then we debrief in May. And then the third one that all fits in with Goal 1 as well is we have a school-wide focus on argumentative writing this year. Last year, if you recall, we focused heavily on research, because on Next Generation MCAS, that's such a big component, and because it's just a skill for life at this point. It's not just for the test. We've taken the next step into another type of writing that Next Gen MCAS looks for, which is argumentative writing. So it's kind of cool because it has to include all the research skills, but then you have to take all the research, synthesize it, and make an argument. So that's my literacy coach is leading that very effectively with English, science, and social studies teachers. So that's a school-wide focus, and they're embedded PD once a month. The next slide is what Mrs. Anir talked about, which is our data on STAR. You can see on reading that we're above 50 on all our growth percentages. On math, we're right at that 50 or higher, except for in grade 8, where we're still in the 40 to 60 range that they want, but we continue to have that be where our lowest number is. So we got to keep working at that, of course. But we're very happy overall with the growth percentages in all of them. And then we're especially happy with 5 of the 6 numbers in the next column, which is the tiered students. You can see in a lot of, those are the kids taking tiered classes. You can see a lot of their growth percentages are much higher than the kids not. So that's exactly what you want to see, is that those programs continually working. So there's only one section where it's actually lower than the overall. So 5 out of 6. We're getting better growth for kids that take the core plus more. The third column is how many kids after the first 2 marking periods have gotten out of the tiered classes due to their scores, which you can still see, especially in reading. We're getting a lot of movement in and out, which is a good thing. You want to give kids what they need, but you'd like to give them some fun specials as well. Tiered math and tiered reading are awesome.
What kind of percentage are in those percentage of students are in the tiered math? Tiered
What percentage?
reading, roughly.
So we have 1 per team in both, and they go from like 12 to 15. So let's say 12 times 6, that would be how many are in it. So 72 are in tiered math at any time.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's about 13% are in tiered math, 13% are in tiered reading, and then switch it all up after marking period. We have a lot of 6th graders especially that take tiered math for half the year and take tiered reading for half the year, because you can't have both. So they take one for the first half, and then we automatically switch them over because they need a little bit of extra in both. Whereas by 7th or 8th, they're kind of more like needing one or the other. Then there's just some pictures on the next page. We've more than any year I've been here, we just have more and more innovative and fun and exciting learning experiences taking place. So top left, you just see a science experiment in the hallway. Top right, pop-up orchestra concert. Bottom left is 8th grade civics. That's a new teacher dressed up as George Washington, and they were setting up actually an outdoor activity that they were going to go do. play capture the flag to mimic the Revolutionary War. And then the bottom right, any of you that get my weekly emails as parents at our school get flooded with these types of pictures, but we just have so many collaborative workspaces throughout the school, and a lot of times you walk through the halls now and it looks like a coffee shop.
I was just gonna say, is that in the hallway?
That's in the hallway, yeah.
Yeah.
We have tables, you'll see when you come, yeah, we have tables all over the hall, and kids are using them and going out and working on computers and doing projects, and just kind of an open learning environment, which was the goal.
Very good.
Nice.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the high school in regards to SMART goal number 1. The first thing I'd like to highlight is some cross-curricular collaboration going on between some of our teachers in different departments at the high school. So you see a couple different pictures up there. The two on the left was a project that was completed by some teachers in our math department, our PE department, science department, and our fine arts department, where if I just backtrack a little bit towards November, we had Todd Nesloni come and speak to our staff, and he talked about inspiring your students to create more meaningful learning experiences and trying to find them experiences that would be more real-world applications. So some of our teachers got together and also encouraged by Dr. Flanagan, where she offered some money to try to engage in some of these projects. And what it started with our math and our PE teacher. What they decided to do was, because the Winter Olympics were coming up, to build 2 curling rinks in our courtyard over at the high school, and teach the students the skills. Teach the students the skills of curling, the game of curling. So not only was there math involved in terms of the measurements piece, where the Algebra 1 class mapped everything out, but the PE teacher also taught the kids the skills, and they practiced the game in the gym. Unfortunately, the weather didn't really cooperate when we were able to run the curling matches outside. Our hope is, as we go into next year, we'll be able to utilize these next year as well.
That's Mr. Marhefka curling with Miss Deast as a sweeper. You can't see her. It was a sight to be seen.
Yeah. Did you win the gold?
What was that?
Did you win the gold?
Of course, I took the students down. And the picture on the right is one of our ESL students, and this was actually a great experience, and I know Mr. Smith was there for this, where one of our creative writing teachers and our ESL teacher, they got together to have the students work on these personal vignette readings, where they talked about different experiences growing up, whether it was either within the United States or whatever their home country might be, and they created a little cafe atmosphere to share these experiences out. So it was a pretty cool day.
Who was their audience? There were other students for the audience?
So other students,
Yeah.
so it was students between the 2 classes. It was the ESL class and the creative writing class, and then there was also teachers there as well. They were able to invite guests. Some of the administrators were there. It was
very impressive.
Yeah,
What they were willing to share was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And well written.
Yep.
And the food they had was fantastic.
So on to the next slide. These are just some of our scores for our DBAs from math and English, from DBA 1, which was given early fall, to DBA 2, which for math and English was given at midpoint, which was in January. Now at the high school, we don't have the student growth percentage for our DBAs because we don't have the STAR program. So what we're looking at here are some growth gains against the standards. These are assessments that were newly aligned to the 2017 standards for this year for both math and English. So what you see at the top is our scores for DBAs 1 and 2 for grades 9 and 10, and the bottom 2 scores are what you see for Algebra 1 and for Geometry. So these are our freshmen and sophomores. Just a couple things to point out. First, with DBA 1 and 2 for English, those are scored against our school-wide writing rubric. So we can see growth against the writing standards for those 2 DBAs. Just one other benefit I just like to highlight here is not only do we get to see growth when we're looking at our DBAs, but it also allows us to track student progress and make sure our teachers are aligning their pacing for commonly taught courses.
What are the dates, Mr. Page, from DBA 1 to DBA 2?
So if you're looking at English, English is September and January. And if you're looking at math, it is October late October and January as well.
So the revised schedule lends itself to this much
Yes.
better.
Yeah, you don't have the time crunch for
Crunch.
to take these, so the pacing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, is not as fast.
Good enough.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Okay, moving into goal number 2, and this is where we really started to take a look at, across the district, how we engage our students, and we want to, in all our classrooms, pre-K through 12, engage our students where they're in learning environments where they can start to develop 21st century skills and really start to develop, most importantly, their problem solving, their critical thinking, and their collaboration. And so, moving to some of the key action steps, both our full day professional development days were really geared around providing our teachers, and for the most part, it was colleagues who was providing the instruction, providing new strategies and new ways to set up their, not only their learning environment, but look at different units and how to possibly revise that unit so experiences are different and products at the end of any unit is different. We had roughly 28 individual workshops along with our 2 keynote speakers, and Mr. Page just mentioned one, Todd Nessaloni, and just recently in February we had Lisa Deeker, and both of those keynote speakers probably could have presented for the entire day. They did about roughly 2 hours, but they had not only their audience riveted, they had enough information that they probably could have gone the full 6 hours. It was pretty incredible. And it has energized, I think, the entire district. So we hope to continue to build on that as we look to professional development, not only in our half days that are coming up, probably we'll start to refine at the building level and look at what can we take from those 2 days and start to put into practice, but as we plan for next year. You've heard a few different snippets, and you'll see in the upcoming months, hopefully a full-fledged plan as to how we can go from being close to having enough machines in each building where every student could have a Chromebook to actually getting there and starting to move from having just 2 classes at the high school, or 2 sections of 1 class at the high school, utilizing Chromebooks, not only in that class, this is a community action learning class, and it more or less was a pilot for us to see how do students not only deal with the responsibility of having a school-provided Chromebook, but how do they utilize it in their daily activities. And we're seeing really good results. At the end of last year, we really had no incidents with the Chromebooks that were used. We brought them back, cleaned them up, and distributed to 2 sections this year. And we're building a plan which we hope to present to all of you in the near future as to how do we do that across a number of grade levels. Our teachers are moving at all levels to more project-based and inquiry-based, and you'll see as the schools start to report out some of the incredible things they're doing at the end of units. Certainly the makerspace has taken off incredibly so. We actually have 2 makerspaces. I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder, Dr. Allen, but there are 2 makerspaces at the middle school which are open to all, really. And our purchasing, it sounds sort of mundane when you're putting it up against some of the things that we were talking about around professional development, but just our purchasing has become different as we look to create these environments that are conducive to more collaboration, more discussion, more inquiry-based learning. Furniture and different things that we purchase for classrooms has become different over the last few years.
So I am presenting goal 2 on behalf of all of the elementaries. I just want to clarify, we got together before this meeting over the past few weeks to try to put our best foot forward as a cohesive elementary group to sort of highlight something that depicts excellence for each school under the umbrella of each goal. So we just felt like we could present for each other and our own picture in each goal. So I just wanted to clarify, because you didn't seem to have a question about that, Rich. Yeah. So here we go. The first one is a picture of a success for Mountain View School. On December 8th, Kim Marshall provided professional development around differentiation. His philosophy is that differentiation doesn't always mean teaching each child in a different way, but differentiating the style of teaching and learning experiences. This photo is from a 5th grade ELA class. The teacher used masking tape on the floor with labels of the elements of a story: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. Students worked collaboratively with their book club members to write specific text examples on a sticky note and add it to the correct element. This is an example of an innovative, different way to map out a story, while working collaboratively using a text that is not only differentiated by students' own reading level, but by their interest level as well. This is a success from Meadowbrook School, talking about different types of purchasing, and I know also Dr. Allen showed flexible spaces in his school. This is to establish physical learning spaces that are flexible and adaptable and enable collaboration, interaction, and information sharing. So at Meadowbrook School, we currently have flexible seating. However, only in some classrooms. We have 7 standing desks that were purchased with previous E-Leaf grants. In addition, some teachers have purchased stability balls, wobbly chairs, scoop chairs, and/or lap desks.
What is a wobbly chair? Is that something I can use?
Actually, that would be perfect.
The little rubber bands that you can,
we have little
the
foot
wobble
bikes
board.
that go into.
Oh,
the
is
wall.
Oh, yes, yes.
I wanna see that. Yeah, I wanna see that.
Sit next to him.
We'll bring one at the end of your visit.
Sorry, Rich.
So I know it's more of anecdotal than it is research-based, but do you find that kids' behavior is better, their focus is longer by
Yeah,
having this type of seating?
yeah. There's a lot of research behind that, that engagement
Right.
of the core for the students as well, helps them with the focus, but
But
we
now that you're
also,
implementing it, can you see it? Are you experiencing it?
I know the teacher feedback
Yeah.
has been positive, but it's not just purchasing the materials, it's how, there's an element of choice.
Rules or?
Well, there's an element of choice involved too.
Okay,
you
that's what I was
know,
gonna follow
and-
up with.
Exactly, so there's an element of choice where the child is maybe selecting a place where they can learn best that day.
Right.
And it might be different the next day. So it's not just about, this is a different type of a seating,
Right.
but, yeah, that element of choice is really huge.
Right.
Different options are more appropriate for different times. I've been in a lot of the
Yes.
kindergarten classrooms where that scoop rocker on the far right-hand side
Mm-hmm.
has worked magic during whole group instruction on a carpet. When there's kiddos who just can't contain themselves in their carpet square, they'll get up on their own and get one of the scoop rockers and put themselves in it, and they know how to sit appropriately in it, and it really helps them stay focused and engaged, but still be able to give them that
We should model
feedback.
this at our next
But-
meeting.
Yeah.
Please.
But just to digress really quickly,
Yeah.
RJ, Gina and I and Frank were approached by a high school student. The student was taking 5 honors courses and talks about the end of the day and how, how constricted her body is. And then she goes home and does 3 hours worth of homework, and we're actually chatting
my
with
daughter?
No, was that no, but just real, I know this is the
Even as
elementary
adults, none of us like
presentation, but
sitting for hours at
we're
a
gonna
time.
look into some of that for next year for
Absolutely.
the high school kids, because she just said by the end of the day, I wanna rip my hair out.
Yeah.
And a very, very focused and industrious young lady.
A lot of our classrooms over the years have transitioned over to the table format for collaboration rather than desks.
Right.
And so there's these sort of blocks that you can sit the legs of the table safely into. They come over this high off the ground, so it turns the table into a standing table. And the students seek it out. Like, they'll put their laptop up there, they'll put their notebooks up there. They seek out to go to that table and stand and work. Yeah.
Now, do you find, and when I ask this question, I'm not saying I'm not a fan of it, because at the school where I worked, I snapped up a wobbly chair and slapped my little buddy right on top of it and said, there you go. So I do know that certain children need it, but my concern, I think, with it is, because I see it where I've been and, you know, where I've subbed in the past too, there are some students who cannot handle sitting next to the child going like this the whole time during class. And I just want you guys to be aware of that and be understanding that some children need to sit still. And as we move forward with all these different things, and some kids need to move. And I've seen kids where they're constant, the peripheral is, and they tend to sit up front, or, you know, they find the teachers. But just think about that as you have a lot more movement in our seating for kids, which I think, like I said, I think it's a great thing. I think I have seen children who can't handle being near it.
And that's why Lisa had pointed out that
Element of
it's
choice.
that element of choice. So the kids who don't want to be near that, because
No, but I'm saying they might
has an
not
option
even
for
want to
going someplace else.
see it. It's a peripheral thing, you know, where they're like, they feel like they gotta watch this kid moving. Just thinking about that
Yeah.
as you move forward, that's all.
Thank you. Finishing up, so our innovation team at Meadowbrook is, I just finished up the last bit I wanted to give about Meadowbrook there, dude. Our innovation team is working on writing grants to obtain flexible seating options for all classrooms so students have flexibility in where they can learn best that day. The intent is to enhance collaboration, interaction, and information sharing in the classroom, engagement and active learning to improve retention of information. Okay.
It's a new way to do things.
That's right. So the last part of goal 2 was to create project-based learning opportunities for students that are inquiry-based, experiential, and collaborative. So at Maple Shade, our first picture was an incredibly successful event, and those of you that attended, we really thank you for your attendance that evening. We conducted a parent night in our makerspace at Birchland Park Middle School. We received a grant to be a resident artist and engineer working with students for 3 years to design solutions, create complex machines, and investigate forces in motion. The culminating community event had 150 students and parents in our makerspace that evening. The second picture is a component of an electronics unit where the students had a different investigation in electronics set up in different classrooms among the 5 fourth grade teachers. Here they are using snap circuits to investigate how we can use water to conduct electricity to close circuits for using sensors, dimmers, lights, sirens, resistors, and integrated circuits.
Those snap circuits are really neat.
Yeah, that's a great product.
Now, I had the time, and I did stop by your Makerspace event at Birchland with the parents, and it was amazing to see the parents interacting with the kids during that
was
day.
an awesome event.
It was a very well,
awesome.
it was a great event.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
So many of the same things at Birchland. We're definitely working on the flexible, adaptable, and collaborative workspaces. Like I said, a lot of open work areas in the hallway. I think we've ordered at this point 40 or 45 stand-up desks. So those are in every classroom now. We also have that top left, so the top right picture is clearly a classroom where just learning has changed. They're sitting in comfy chairs, resting on yoga balls, on laptops, next to carpets. Mood lighting.
Yeah, really.
It looks like a teenage room, like it.
Yeah, it does. We're happy. We're seeing more and more of that, and more different looking classrooms, which is one of our goals. Top left is our second makerspace, which is not in our library. It's in a classroom, and it's just really beautiful at this. Like if it was our only makerspace, it would be a huge success. And the fact that it's our second one, so that was a big math project where they make pencils to scale that are like 5 feet long. Bottom left there is our laser cutter. That was another math project. We got the laser cutter from eLeaf last year, and we have a lot of work to do with the laser cutter still, but it's started. It's catching hold. We had a math teacher use it. We've had some other things go on. So we're really excited about that.
Mr. Fredette was using it at the engineering, playful engineering night.
Yeah.
I have a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
I did.
So learning is looking, the learning environment is looking more and more 21st century, and the types of learning that are happening at Birchland are looking more and more 21st century. We have, the makerspace now is not like, hey, here's how you could go in there. Now it's like, hey, it's booked, which is what we wanted, So, I mean, there was times last week where we had 60 8th grade English students, 30 in each makerspace, and they were inventing items that they could sell in the dystopian setting of The Giver. And then we had Shark Tank, where like Mr. Martin and I were often judges and bidding and stuff. So just more and more of that happening, and it's great to see. DLC, the third bullet there, DLCS work. We've done a ton of work around how we want to address DLCS at the middle school, and I believe I'm on the agenda in 2 weeks to talk way more about that.
Digital literacy, computer science.
Digital literacy, computer science framework. So I'm coming back in 2 weeks to talk more about that. And then, and yeah, we've been working hard towards the one-to-one. We're really excited to hopefully get there soon. We're not as close as Mountain View, but we've bought a lot, and we are fairly close. We're within 150 or so at a big school. So, so we're just excited. We really want that to be the next step.
Okay, so last time I was in front of you, I was asking you to cross your fingers that we got the grant. We got it!
Yay!
So I want to say thanks to Michael for that, because Michael was very instrumental in helping us kind of put this project together. And we are just so excited. $35,000 to the high school and $12,000.
$12,500 in shape.
And we're going to use every penny of it. That's a picture of Mr. Van Buren receiving it. He is smiling, which if you know Peter, that's just a beautiful thing. I mean, it's great to see. So Peter is going to be spending a big chunk of his summer going to a lot of training to get the courses up and running. It's a 3-series course, so Intro to Engineering next year, and another course the following year, and then of course a senior capstone. And we're just so excited to be able to offer our students. As you know, this is becoming such a hot buzz topic, not just in education, but in the world, the economic landscape of our country. So it's great to see, and we're really trying to make an effort to also be cognizant of trying to get more females into the area of STEM, as that has been a big topic of discussion about many educational communities. So we're very, very excited about that. As everyone else mentioned, we're working really hard to put together a thoughtful plan to make one-to-one computing in our district a reality. I know at the high school level, it is something that we're seeing way more kids talk more and more about as they move on to the progression to college. You know, it's not even a question of, you know, if we should do it, it's when. And we really gotta be focused on that. So more on that coming soon. The other thing we've been working really hard at the high school is, as you've heard really consistently throughout the district, is this idea of innovation. At the high school, we've actually put together a formal team of teachers and of course the administrators. And one of the projects that we have working on is we wanted to solicit feedback on those 3 questions that you see up there. So what does innovation mean to you? What does it look like in an education? And what are areas of daily school life do you feel means the most in terms of innovation? So we've asked that question of our staff. We've asked that of our students. We're currently putting together a video that we're going to share at one of our next faculty meetings. The group that I just mentioned consists of Mr. McVetti, who's new to our English department, Mr. Van Buren, of course. We have Ms. Forward, who's a part of that group, and Mr. Phelan in math. The idea was to get as many different departments involved, so because innovation looks different in all those different areas. And one of the things we're working on right now is we are taking a look at the elements that classroom innovation, so what does that look like? And we're doing a book study on George Corios' book, Innovator's Mindset. So we're hoping that that committee serves as a resource to our staff in terms of new ideas and outside-the-box thinking and teachings, because I think at the high school level, we get very bogged down in lecture-based discussions and instruction. Really trying to change that dynamic. The feedback, again, that we get from a lot of our students is at the college level, it's very much project-based. It's very much, you know, working with your peers, and we want to model that as best as we can at the high school. I just wanted to say a little bit off the script. We talked a lot about innovation learning spaces. I'm really excited. Lori Paul, who is our Director of Food Services, we are working collaboratively right now in innovating our cafeteria. And so we had a company come in and we're talking about revamping it. And one of the cool things that we're working on right now with DPW is, you know, the bookshelves that are along, we're gonna cut those in half. And if we move to a one-to-one, we'd like to just have those as counters. So kids can go there during lunch and work on homework. They can work, and there's power in there, so there's not a lot of money involved with it. So, but at least that's what they say right now.
Yeah.
So we're doing that, and of course, you know, at the high school, we're keeping up, maintaining our collaborative workspaces. You know, a lot of people freak out when they come to the high school and they see kids in the lobby at lunch on the benches, but the kids enjoy it. It's just another way for them to collaborate and get together. Whether it's socially or academic, I think it's great to model that type of environment for our students, because again, that's what they're going to see when they leave us. So, and that's the things that are going on at the high school.
Okay, and that brings us to goal 3, which is all around our climate and our culture in our buildings, and making sure that we're always thinking about creating a safe and nurturing and respectful learning and working environment, and that we're looking to support the whole child. And that's something that we've been focused on for a number of years, and really what we do is we zero in on the action steps each year, and they become different as we identify different needs in the district and throughout all our buildings. Some of the things that we've done this year is, you remember at this time last year, we were building a budget where we were not necessarily looking for new funding. We were looking to see how we could utilize some existing funding differently. And so what we did is we were able to allocate this year approximately $60,000, which we then distributed based on enrollment to the schools so that they had some funding to look at if there was a challenge that they feel that they weren't meeting in terms of social and emotional learning or specific challenges that our students are facing, they could try different supports. And I'm sure they'll be reporting out on some of those. It's been pretty incredible so far. So as you know, as we look to build next year's budget, we're looking to add to that if possible. A key component in this certainly is, and Mr. Fonseca was talking about this before the meeting, is it'd be great if Circuit Breaker stays at 75% reimbursement. And Circuit Breaker is a revolving account and program, as a state program, as you all know, that reimburses school systems for some of their most costly students and interventions and so forth in terms of supporting students to the best of our ability. Right now, the governor's budget has moved it to 65% reimbursement. Anyway, something to think about politically. We also continue to forge new partnerships because we can't do what we're doing alone. It takes the entire community at large to support us and help us and volunteer. It also takes us seeking out new partnerships. We have certainly partnerships that have been in existence for years, but we're looking to branch out, and Dr. Welsh this year has been instrumental in bringing us a new partnership with Bay Path University and their graduate programs, and I know Dr. Welsh will give us some more specifics around that. Another new partnership is Mr. Page and I went over and met with the Springfield Recovery School, different kind of partnership, where should our students ever need assistance, we have the ability to send students there, and they have a pretty impressive program we need to discuss a little bit more specifically with guidance. But I will stop talking and let Dr. Welsh present the partnership that's coming into ELPS.
So very quickly, certainly we've all been able to appreciate the growth that has come to East Long Meadow, and Bay Path University has put up a beautiful building right here in East Long Meadow. It's probably a mile from each one of our schools, where they have some of their graduate programs, in particular in occupational therapy, as well as their physician's assistant program, and many of their grad programs in education are now in that building as well. We as a district have been really fortunate to avail ourselves of some of the resources that Bay Path has provided us. We've hired, Bay Path alums. Many of them do internships and practicums with us. But I really wanted to try to do something a little bit more structured, especially having that resource so close to us. So we reached out to their graduate program in occupational therapy. And level 1 grad students in occupational therapy are required to do a certain number of hours, including hours of community outreach, and some of that has to involve working with children. So we have this year 25 level 1 graduate students in occupational therapy working at Maple Shade and at Meadowbrook. The students work in pairs. The college supplies all of the supervision and so forth, and the students are responsible for planning activities and delivering activities. So it's kind of a win-win for both the students. And, we have a lot to showcase, and I'm always interested in what somebody else, can maybe do for us. So we had our first little group. We had a very nice orientation. Lisa was very gracious hostess, and so now the students are there, and Michael's school as well, and so I'm hoping that we can expand it beyond that in years to come, and my real hope is that we can get some of our students into that nice building and use some of that facility. So that's going to be the next step as far as that goes.
That's great.
Yeah, that is
Thank you.
fantastic.
It's
Thank
really
you.
fantastic. Actually, BAPAP has been a very gracious host to all of us. The last few years, we do our end-of-the-year leadership retreat over at their building. They're between their semesters, and so it's a nice time frame, late June, where we can get over there and use some of their facilities. So it's been fantastic.
And they let us do a half-day PD there too. Remember that?
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They were great.
Yeah, so that's becoming a really beneficial partnership.
Good.
Yeah. The last bullet here is something that we have begun. One of the things that I said to staff in an email today is that one of the things that East Long Meadow Public Schools does extremely well, I think, is build relationships with our students and our families. But we can always get better, and that's really what goal 3 is. If you look at the action steps that are outlined, not only for the district, but at the building level, it's about understanding and identifying needs for our students and our families, and making sure that we're identifying how do we bring support to that need. And that's a challenge. If you don't have students feeling comfortable, safe, and secure, they're not going to be able to learn. That's just the truth. We know more and more about that each year with research that's going on. So one of the things we've started to do as we become a more diverse community and school system is we started to work with a licensed school psychologist and consultant to help look at basically our buildings and our school community and help us define diversity and inclusion. Because we talk about it quite frequently, but sometimes when you're immersed in it, you can't define it as well as someone who is coming and looking at it for the first time. And so this is new work we're doing, and it's going to be work that will certainly need the expertise that's in all of our buildings, and certainly the expertise of a licensed school psychologist who's done this work not only for other school districts but also at the university level. And so it's early on, but we're seeing some pretty good benefits from it already, and just understanding what our next steps are to support our students in the best way possible.
Okay, I'm going to be discussing goal 3, action steps and mid-cycle results for the elementary schools. And this slide starts with Meadowbrook. And the picture on the left talks about how this is the second year Meadowbrook has been implementing school-wide assemblies with a focus on character traits. They've highlighted the following traits over the past year and a half: perseverance, respect, kindness, gratitude, courage, and friendship. A quote connected to the character trait is shared each morning during the morning announcements, and the classrooms also work on an activity connected with the trait and share it during this assembly that's pictured on the left. Picture 2, up at the top, Meadowbrook engages families in community building events. This is Family Bingo Night, which was a huge success, and brought all the families together to play. The PTO also hosts various other events such as the Family Pizza Night, the Book Fair, Meet the Authors Night, International Night, which they also invite the other elementary schools to, and their family picnic, just to name a few. And picture number 3 on the bottom, Meadowbrook provides 2 family workshops each year. The first event was in January. At this event, Betsy Sheehan and Joe Hudson facilitated a workshop to help parents understand executive functioning in children. They provided families with strategies to help them with organization. The school council sent out a survey to families to garner feedback on workshop topics for the second parent workshop this year. In addition, as they continue to focus on social emotional awareness and support, Meadowbrook invited a guest speaker for the March 7th half-day professional development who will explain how trauma, violence, and neglectful caretaking impact the brain and a child's ability to have the secure state of readiness essential for learning to take place. For this professional development, they've also purchased a book called Helping Traumatized Children Learn for all the teachers and paraprofessionals. Next slide is Mountain View. And I'm talking about our social emotional development. The first picture up at the left is our Someone Special dance, which we had the Friday before Valentine's Day. We had over 200 people at the dance. It was packed. The kids and parents had a great time. So that's some of our third grade girls posing for me at the dance. We also had a photo booth. The DJ and games, the photo booth is very popular. They get to wear props and it's a big deal. The picture at the bottom left is of our pioneers, which I've talked about every year during discussion of this goal. This is the Mountain View Student Leadership Community Service Group that Norma Campbell, Sue Thomas, and Deb Berry run after school. And this year, the pioneers, every year they choose a charity. And this year, Grace Howard, who's pictured on the bottom left, she's in the red sweatshirt with the glasses. Her mother is the director at the Veterans Administration. So they decided to collect personal care items for veterans, and that's what we did as our charity fundraiser in the fall. So they're standing with all of the stuff that they collected for veterans in that picture. The picture on the right, every year, we have an anti-bullying week in January that we also celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King during that week. And this year, we focused on Dr. King's tenets and what he believed in. And so rather than having a door decorating contest or a slogan contest, which we've had in the past, we encouraged each classroom to come up with a good deed that they could do for the school or the community. So rooms 33 and 31 invited the police department for breakfast. So this is a picture. The chief and 6 officers came and they had waffles and bacon and coffee and sat with the kids to have breakfast. So everyone said they had a great time. The chief, I don't know how many times he's told me what a great thing it was, so the kids loved it too. And the last little plug is the pink box at the top. Frank mentioned earlier, Todd Nesloni presented to us in November at our PD, and one of his other suggestions with keeping in contact with the community was to be really involved on Twitter. And prior to that, we had maybe 10 followers and maybe posted 2 pictures a year. Well, Amy Pelzik took the bull by the horns, and she has trained 2 new student interns every 2 weeks who completely run our Twitter account.
Yeah.
We now have 172 followers on Twitter, and the
You make
kids
sure
have.
to point that out to me.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do. Amy loves to point that out.
Yeah.
They have to apply for the job. There's an application that they have to fill out in order to be an intern. The answers are hysterical and adorable, but they do a really good job. And so that's going strong right now at Mountain View.
Good.
And finally, Maple Shade. So Maple Shade had a gratuity campaign this year, and the top left picture is where they filled a massive bulletin board with sticky notes of things they are grateful for in their lives. We did something very similar at Mountain View. Maple Shade was also active in graphing the students' random acts of kindness, and that's what you see on the right. They categorized the specific acts, helping, sharing, reaching out, assisting, etc., and graphically represented them in a visual display showcasing these acts that were the most successful in the school. Maple Shade is using their social emotional money for mindfulness and self-care with Cape Forest. And they're creating outdoor learning spaces for walking clubs, gardening, STEM, tinkering, and gameplay.
Wow, very good.
So what were some of those higher acts on that graph?
That one, I have to look at the.
Okay, it's
That one was, helping. Helping was the top one.
And at Birchland Park, like I said the last time, I believe that this particular goal is essential to middle school life. Middle school is notorious. The 3 years that students are with us are the 3 hardest years of a person's development. So it's all the more important for us to be able to nurture the students. Through that nurturing, we're able to achieve goals 1 and 2. So at Birchland, one philosophy that we live by is having fun. So we try to infuse fun throughout the school day in many ways. We have fun with each other as adults. The students are able to pick up on that. We have fun with the students, and then that just raises the energy level at the building. The students are able to divert that energy into the activities and the lessons that we have going on at any given moment. And for students that are struggling, what is important is that our teachers are so adept at being able to form relationships with students. So one of the philosophies that we live by is based off of Rita Pearson's TED Talk, Every Child Needs a Champion. So in the building, there's for every student, there's at least one teacher or one faculty member that they can reach out to, whether it be one of their core teachers, myself or Dr. Allen, anyone from guidance, so that they feel comfortable talking with someone, because at some point in their lives during the 3 years that they're with us, they're going to struggle with something. It could be an extreme struggle, it could be just a typical run-of-the-mill middle school struggle, but as long as they feel comfortable reaching out to an adult that's going to stick up for them and work them through it, they are more likely to succeed. And for students that just truly struggle in non-traditional ways, we have a student assistance meeting process. We currently have 9 students that we have targeted, and we are working with the families around these particular students who just need additional supports. And for every one of these students, we have at least 3 to 4 meetings throughout the course of the year. We have our introductory meeting in which we review the students' success rate and their history throughout East Long Meadow, or if they're new to the district, we go into the cumulative folder wherever they came from and just get a snapshot of what they've done. We review their strengths, their challenges, their interests, their passions, and then try to provide some action steps around that, monitor it for about 4 to 6 weeks, and then return as a team, see how those action steps worked. If there's success, then that's great. If not, then we revise the action steps, and then 4 to 6 weeks out again, we meet again, and then then we plan some serious next steps. If they need to go on an IEP, we make the referral, and so forth. So that's for our students that need the most support. Throughout the entire building, we are working with all 670 students every Thursday to address social and emotional competencies through our advisory programs. So currently we have been focusing on self-management in the realm of social media, because that is key right now. Social media is not going away. It's only going to become a bigger presence in students' lives. When used appropriately, cell phones are the greatest tool that they could possibly ever have. It's one of the greatest inventions that we have. That the entirety of human history is at our fingertips, and any answer we could want is just right there with a click of a button. But of course, as we know, social media can also bring out the worst. So it's important for us to be able to educate our students on that, and that's been our focus lately. But as you can see from these pictures, picture number 1, this is our staff wearing Alex Blaze t-shirts. Alex is an incredible young man with an incredible family, and our staff, students, and school council, student council has really wrapped their arms around embracing Alex. And we had an Alex week. Students purchased these t-shirts, and through all the activities that we had, we were able to raise $2,500 for Alex and his family, and that was fantastic. And then in the second picture, during National No Name Calling Week, we broke up the cliques at lunch one day, and we had a National Mix It Up Day, and students, they sat in random assignments at different tables, and they played an interactive trivia game based on Nobel Prize winning figures throughout history, and that was a lot of fun. Picture 3 is an example of just the fun we try to have at Birchland and the pride that we have as adults, and try to instill that pride within our students. We 2 to 3 times throughout the year, we purchase Birchland-sponsored apparel, and it's just great for students to be able to walk around and see the adults in the building just representing the building that they work at. And then the 4th picture is an example of the Thursday advisory activities. This was an especially meaningful one where every student, they had to sit with their back to the whiteboard. And all the other students in the advisory took times going up to the whiteboard, and while the students had their back to them, the students wrote complimentary messages about the things that they liked about that particular student. And the student turned around, took in all of the compliments, which was good. Not only did they see how their peers felt about them, but I know personally for me, I'm not someone that takes compliments very well. I always want to shoot it down. So one of the components was they had to take the compliment. You know, they couldn't, you know, shoot it down or make a snide comment or try and make a joke out of it. You know, so they were taught a little bit about grace as well. And we did that heading into Thanksgiving. So it was a perfect send off for that.
Thursday advisory had a chance to be part of at least one. I have to say that it was a high degree of comfort in sharing.
That's a good way to put it.
In Dr. Allen's and Mr. Martin's advisory on Thursday, and it really does not matter whether the superintendent walks in or not. Sharing will continue, so I would say that the relationships are strong.
I have to say, I've got a very large Post-it note that must have come from that activity with the whiteboards. So my daughter wasn't in the class, I don't know if she had band or whatever, something happened, she wasn't in. And so they did all hers on this massive sticky note. And it was kind of neat when I got home, I said, it was like some really neat stuff I wouldn't have thought of her. Because she, of course, acts different in front of you guys than she will for me. So it's nice, it's on the door, in the kitchen, and I look at it every once in a while and go, don't try that on me? Appreciate it.
All right, so at the high school, we're also striving to meet the ever-evolving needs of all of our students on a daily basis. And at the high school level, I mean, as you can imagine, they come in straight out of 8th grade, and that presents its own set of challenges. And then 4 years later, they're trying to go on to the next step of their lives, which creates a whole different set of challenges for them too. So we have a few things going on right now. Most recently, we posted for what we're calling a school refusal case manager to help our guidance staff and adjustment staff to link together all the support personnel for our, say, 10 to 12 students who are struggling to get even into the building. Our guidance staff and adjustment counselor and teachers and everyone, they're doing a great job of really making that effort to help every student come in every day. But as you can imagine, when you're faced with all the kids who are here, you know, on a given day, we're looking to make that extra step to the students who are struggling to come in. We're still, our Spartan Block, our advisory program is still evolving and improving and enhancing on a regular basis. Most recently, our two teachers who have spearheaded the program, Ms. Dixon and Ms. Norden, they're actually in the process of developing a 4-year program so that as we go along, each grade level has its own curriculum moving forward. So they're definitely working on that. We also, if you skip to the bottom, we had such positive feedback from the Lynn Lyons presentation. We're trying to coordinate a date with her for her to come back and possibly provide more of a student presentation, because the anxiety matter is definitely growing, and we're hoping that she can provide our students and their families with additional tips on how to maybe ease and probably better manage the growing anxiety that many of our students are facing as they grow older and head towards their post-secondary life. And then Dr. Flanagan was very excited to talk about our diversity initiative and our civics initiative, given the public face that both of those programs have brought to our school in the recent past.
So, the high school in the last few years has, I want to say, I have to give props to our students. Our students are really altruistic, they're very compassionate, and they've brought a lot of important social issues to the forefront. So if you remember back a couple years ago with the robes, that was all student generated. Our gender neutral bathrooms, all student generated. And now we're talking more about issues of inclusivity in terms of race. And one of the things that we decided this year that we really wanted to keep going was this idea of diversity, inclusivity. Just to kind of give you an idea, diversity is acknowledging our differences and inclusivity is respecting our differences. So I want to make that distinction. So we've been really working hard into trying to give our students a voice and give our staff an education of what that looks like, with the goal of trying to make everybody feel safe and valued at the high school. So with that being said, earlier in December, we were very happy to take on our diversity committee, and one of the first action steps we wanted to do within the committee was start gathering information from our stakeholders as to what are perceptions and perspectives when it comes to these issues. And so one of our major action steps was to start creating a data collection device. And we were fortunate enough to be introduced to Dr. Hayda Martinez. You can see her picture there. She hails from Puerto Rico. She's done a lot of work at the University of Massachusetts. She has a PhD in criminal justice, and she just seemed like a good fit to help the high school navigate some of these important discussions. And so one of the things she's been actively doing, as a matter of fact, she had her first student focus group sessions today. She is basically meeting with students right now and trying to get their perspectives of how they feel about all issues of inclusivity at the high school. And I met with her after the first session today. She was exhausted, by the way. She's like, these kids are over there. They got a lot to say. So I was like, yeah, welcome to our world. But she was very impressed with the candor of our students, that they're so willing to share. She also was very impressed with their sense of, again, compassion for each other. So she met with two groups today. She met with students in the Multicultural Club. She met with students in our student council. Tomorrow she's meeting with students of our METCO program. She's also going to be meeting with students of the GSA. So she's meeting with our specialized leadership groups for now. And an idea after that is to want to get as many student voices as part of this conversation. She's going to be randomly touching out to students. So we want to give as many diverse groups of students an opportunity to kind of share out what are the things that they're hearing and seeing at the high school, with the idea of identifying what we need to work on as a high school. She's also going to be working with teacher focus groups. So, the same drill. She's going to be talking to teachers about what they're experiencing, what they're seeing. And again, the idea is to just get this conversation talking. On March 7th, our district-wide PD Day, Dr. Martinez and I are collaborating on a PD where she's going to give a general overview to our staff in terms of inclusivity and diversity. And then what I'm going to be doing is we want to start taking a look at our curriculum guides to see if they are culturally proficient. I'm doing a whole lesson on the history of public school education in our country, because that history is very male, white-dominated history, which reflects what's in our curriculum. So what we're going to be doing is utilizing a research-based rubric on cultural proficiency. Teachers are going to be taking a look at their own curriculum units and seeing where they're doing well in this area and where are some things that we could do a little bit better. So that's going to be happening on March 7th. And it's an ongoing discussion, so we're trying not to make this a one-time thing. I think it's something I think the high school, we always want to have that as one of our goals, because I can tell you from the student perspective, it's very meaningful for them. Almost daily, we have students talking to us about, right now we have a big display on Women's History Month, and that's been kind of garnering very interesting conversations. And with the focus on Black History Month, these are issues that are near and dear to our kids' hearts, so we want to keep those conversations going. So that is that of the Diversity Committee. Are there any questions about that, or no? All right.
Just to mention, Dr. Martinez is a licensed psychologist, school psychologist. I think the doctorate's in social justice?
Yes, social justice.
Social justice, not criminal justice.
Oh, did I say criminal justice?
Yes.
I was a criminal justice minor, so.
And her work most recently has been in the Amherst Public Schools, the South Hadley Public Schools, and at the University of Massachusetts.
Very nice lady. So as you all know, we've been really focused this year in trying to provide more of a structured civics curriculum for our students. We've always done a really good job, I think, as a high school in terms of that component. But this year, we just seem to really have a hyper focus on that. And so as you can see in that last picture, those are our students who, for the third year in a row, I think, third year, we've been focusing on the Model Congress. Mr. Phelan and Mr. Polk have went with that field trip with the students there. One of the things that our social studies department is doing as a part of the professional learning group this year is they are taking the advisory block and they have developed lesson plans that focus on civics education. So for example, one of the days they have planned is getting to know the most important Supreme Court cases. That will be offered to all students. What are your rights, voters registration, and Constitution Day will just be some of the topics that they'll be discussing within the advisory period. And we've gotten, the advisory period for us is, we've got a lot of traction on that this year. And what I love about it is that we are able to, whatever hot button topic is going on in the world around us, we can stop and address it with our students in a very calm, academic sometimes way. And it just gives them a voice to some of the things that are going on in the world around them. So we're going to continue doing that for as long as we can.
I think some of the social studies driven advisory blocks, LCAT might be involved in creating videos too, Mr. Mackey?
Yep.
So that gives you hopefully a pretty in-depth look at where we are at the midpoint, just over the midpoint of the school year. But certainly wanted to open it up for questions or comments or thoughts.
I just want to comment on the presentation. I really liked the way it was organized, the way that all the administrators presented. It's a good depth and breadth too. I mean, I really feel like I've learned an awful lot on all three goals. Very impressive. I like the
We're
fact
working
that-
on how we present.
I like this one. I like
Yeah.
this.
This style is good.
So- I'll write that down.
Gordon wrote it down.
It's right here.
Very impressive.
Yeah, very good.
Dr. Flanagan, wondering if student safety or safety in schools has come up in your recently.
So it's interesting, our last advisory, which was it last week? It was the day after the incident happened, so we have our own, we meet with the freshmen every advisory, and so we brought the conversation up with the kids. The goal was to hear them out, but also to kind of pick their brain in terms of how they're feeling. Right. And it was very, very, very good for us to hear their voices, and we're going to continue those conversations with our students. Actually, I'm meeting next week with our student council representatives, and I really kind of call to action to them to let's have a really in-depth conversation of how we as a school community can work on school safety. And the unfortunate events that happened is devastating, and there's so many aspects of it. There's the gun control issue, but for as a school community, one of the things we're trying to focus on is the mental health and the isolation piece. We have a lot of kids in our school that sit alone, don't have a lot of friends, and we want to make the charge to reach out to those kids so that they don't feel that they're the outsider, that they are part of a bigger community. So that's another thing that we're going to be talking with our student councils, how we as a school community can embrace each other.
Please let us know how
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
could help,
We've been working also with the ELPD. We met Mr. Superintendent Smith, myself. We met with Officer Manning and Officer Ingalls last week to kind of, sit down and so I think anytime something like this happens, it's a great opportunity for us to,
Right.
review what's going on in our schools. So a lot of great conversations came out of that as well.
Because I think, just the dynamic of everything that's happened, the mental aspect is something that that's something we can work on.
Social emotional.
It's
Well, I was just gonna mention it.
Yeah.
Right.
It all centers in on that.
It does, and I think that's, as Greg said, please keep us up to date.
Yeah, absolutely.
The nice thing is that in our discussion with the police department, they were centered in on that piece too.
Yeah.
That it's about the relationships.
It is.
It's about the relationships, the support, and the communication. The better we get at that, the safer our communities
Right,
become.
because that message gets lost with the national coverage of something of this magnitude. And that's just the sensationalization of the news media, how it's driven today.
Right.
They don't focus on the mental aspect of it. And that's, I think, something that we can do,
It's a big piece of it.
it's a huge piece of it that we can work on.
Absolutely.
And take everything seriously too.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm
Yeah.
sure you do. I mean, you gotta take
Yeah.
it seriously.
Even the issue like diversity, inclusivity, that's a big part of
It is.
this,
Right.
that would happen as well. I mean, kids have to feel that their differences are respected and valued, and that's why it's in part of our SMART goals, so.
When you hear them screaming for help and it's not there.
It's sad.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah,
Thank you so
you.
much.
Thank you. I just
All of
want
you.
to
Thank you.
compliment everyone and
Thank you.
have a
Good
good
job.
night.
Thank you, everybody.
Alan.
I'm good, I'm good.
Can I leave it?
You can't.
I don't think that applies to us.
Social studies need to stay.
What's that?
I think Val.
Oh, Gina, yeah, we do, so I think it's next, right? No.
they didn't.
7.1?
Yeah, let's do that now. We'll do it right
Yeah,
now.
we'll
Phil.
move
can do
it
it
right
now.
now, so I'll just have someone,
Yep, move to move 7.1 up to the next order of business.
okay, motion made?
Second.
And second, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Carries forward 5-0. So at this point, we're gonna, you guys can stay here, and we will talk about the changes to the East Long Meadow High School Social Studies elective contemporary issues. Thank you.
Okay, so one of the things, again, that came on our in-depth focus on civics this year was trying to revamp the contemporary issues course to make that more structured and defined as relates to civics. And so I'm really happy to say that Ms. Ruger and Mr. Polk took a look at the course, and I think you have a copy of the revised description. So you can see here that is a high emphasis on very specific issues related to civics, both from a national and global perspective. So students will be working with political ideas, forms of government, talking of issues of immigration, education, state and local government, and so forth. So it's just taking the contemporary issue course that we have now and making it more civic focused.
Grades 11 and 12, Dr. Flanagan?
Yes, sir.
And right now, this is your most popular elective.
Social, it's our, most highly enrolled social studies course at the high school.
Nice. So this is a revision, correct?
Correct. I will tell you that we also have to, we want to take a better look at the curriculum as well and do some formalized work. We did make tweaks to a lot of that, but I think the plan is to, in the next few months, also take a look at that course and make it more structured as represented in our district curriculum guides.
Okay.
But
And
we
you
were
need
also
to-
waiting for the whole
Well, that's what I'm
shakedown.
saying, you're not purchasing anything new for
No,
this course.
no.
They're not finalized or approved yet, they're just out for public
Right.
comment, so we want our staff to be able to have input into any finalized product
Okay.
that comes out of the state. So we're doing that first, and it gives us an opportunity and the staff to actually dig into them and see what it might mean, but it's just surface level planning, then we can move into action planning after they're approved.
So then this would be a class starting in September.
Well, it's an already existing course,
It's
we're just
just-
tweaking
just
it, revising
tweaking
it,
it, yeah.
yep.
Okay,
And somewhat of a name change, right?
Yes, it was contemporary issues before, now it's civics and issues.
okay.
You want a motion for that?
I think we do, yeah.
Move to accept the changes to East Long Meadow High School Social Studies elective contemporary issues as presented.
Okay, motion made.
Second.
And second, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And that carries forward 5-0.
Thank you,
All
everyone.
right, great,
Thank you.
very
Good night.
much.
Take
Have
care.
a good night.
Yeah, let's move through these.
So we're
here.
moving down
fly.
to Assistant
Right.
Superintendent for Business. We have 5.2.1, gift donation.
Okay, in your packet, you're going to see a letter from Dr. Allen asking you to accept the attached gift of $800, which was donated by Dr. Margolis of Wilbraham. This is the third year of the Margolis Miler for Music. It's a 5K race that is run in October in Wilbraham. The gift is to be used for the music department.
My daughter's orthodontist.
And my
Oh,
daughter's
why
already
did
done
that
this.
There you go.
How much
There
money
you
have we
go.
dropped to that
I
place?
move we accept
Please
the
give it
gift
some back.
donation
Yeah,
Oh,
for
right.
Bertram Park Music Department for the Margolis Miler for Music 5K race in the amount of $800.
Okay, motion made.
Second.
And seconded, any further discussion? Keep going there. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all
Aye.
those opposed, say nay. Carries forward 5-0.
Great, I'll get that deposited to the gift account.
Who's got E-Leaf, Beth?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
do
but
that.
we have E-Leaf coming up, the funds,
We do.
and the grants fund.
So what does this mean?
Give the paper.
I know.
Give the paper
Oh, no,
copy.
I wasn't.
Paper copy.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Here you go, Pam.
Okay, well, I wasn't sure where.
Yeah, no, I was trying to get it
As
to
you
flip
can tell, we have some
around.
anxiety here.
Okay, all right, I'll move it on.
All right, because I don't have my glasses on, so I'm trying to make
Sorry to put you on the
it,
spot,
and it's
Beth.
flipping
Yeah.
around.
Pam's got it.
So there were 8 grant awards this year, totaling $23,166.59. So we do thank you, eLeaf. To let everyone know, there was 2 at Mapleshade. Michael Fredette, which was for novel engineering, that was $2,990. John Wiedersheim at Mapleshade, video camera set for new studio, $1,889.99. At Birchland Park, Dawn Lemoyne and Suzanne Collins, 3D printers and materials for $3,478. At Meadowbrook, Faith Went, learning with robotics in K-2, the case for Kibo. Is that how you pronounce that, Kibo? $5,772.79. Again, at Meadowbrook, Faith Went, building bins for $500. Mountain View, Chris Tyler, robotics and computer programming, $2,754.81. Aaron Ty at Mountain View, ukulele and songwriting unit for $852.
That's awesome.
I think that's so cool.
Yes.
It is.
And lastly, at the high school, Peter Van Buren, technology-enabled physics lab for $4,929.
Yeah.
So again, eLeaf, thank you very, very much.
Yeah, congratulations to you, Leaf, on the
Yeah.
fundraising and all the grants.
They really did. They did a,
Great
you know,
job.
and they're so close to that $1 million
Yeah.
mark. They're itching at this
Yeah,
point,
you
and
can
it's been a
tell.
long road, and there are some people on that board who just, they give and they give and they give,
And
and
you can
I'm
tell.
just sitting
Oh,
there
yeah.
like, I'll go buy the acrylic box to put the football in.
Nice.
And so, you know, it's,
Yeah.
and so, yeah,
And it's great, the teachers, the ideas that they've come up with.
they really
to
have,
bring
and
something
there
different
was.
to the classroom.
It is, and I think that's why I like the ukulele, because they kind of went very heavy engineering and STEM and that
Right,
kind
it's
of
away
thing
from
this year.
technology.
It was,
Something
and they had some really great ideas, but it's difficult for them because they have
Parameters.
parameters that they're set, which is part of their little world. And you know, they would have liked to have done the furniture this year. They tried the standing desks. It's a thing.
Right.
They say it's a thing, so now it's for us to pick that up, and you know, whatever it is. But
They help us pioneer, and then we
Right.
should, if it works,
Yeah.
we should be sustaining it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So anyways, hopefully.
Thank you.
might
So
get
if
lucky
you would
this
like
year.
to
Make
make
the
the
motion.
motion to accept
Oh,
the
sure.
grants.
I move that we accept the eLeaf grant funds for $23,166.59.
Well, second.
Motion made and seconded, any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And that carries forward 5-0. Thank you.
Great, I'll get those grants set up, thank you.
Excellent. All right, we're moving down to 5.3.1, the feedback from February 7th PD Day. So we move on to the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction.
Hi, so you have it pretty much spelled out in front of you. I'll just do a quick update. I included a chart so that you could see both the November and the February feedback. February, we were a little shaky on whether we'd get the same level of feedback, just because the day where we were up against the weather and had to shorten our sessions, and that's somewhat stressful, but it was still a very successful day, even with a couple of bumps in the road, and you can see that they did as well, if not better, in some of the categories that that we collected feedback from staff on. And then I gave you a little bit of the anecdotal feedback that we received through emails, either to myself or to myself and Superintendent Smith. So it is something that we will certainly, we feel that the first year has been extremely successful, and we're looking to refine what we need to refine and just enhance and continue to provide a professional development opportunity that not only engages staff and encourages them and starts off with, like Superintendent Smith said, the keynote speakers, which kind of heightens them for the day, but also provides an opportunity for teacher leadership with using our own staff to share their expertise with other staff across the district. So that went very well. Really happy that we had a good pioneering year with that, and just going to continue.
Yeah, my only comment is, as staff gets used to this kind of style or setup, I think the results will continue to get better.
Well, my goal was 80% or more in agreement.
Got it.
There's always a small contingency, which is never,
Yeah.
it depends on what they, they want necessarily.
Right.
So, we think we met that in almost all categories. We were a little off on one in each of the days. So, but yes, they'll get used to it, and hopefully we have more people who are willing to kind of put themselves out there and provide PD. And we're going to do a survey at the end of this year to kind of gauge the type of keynotes that they may want, maybe some feedback that they have, particularly around structure. And we'll do some work on that.
I like that fifth item about how the information I learned positively impacts students.
That's the best one. Yeah, that's the best one.
Compliments on that.
I just want to say quick, I like that there were out-of-district folks that came in to
Yes.
visit and to
Yes.
see
Yes.
what we're doing
Yes.
and maybe
Right.
take something back to their schools and we can learn from them too.
Yeah.
The
We're thinking-
LPDC districts are very interested in what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're very impressive what you've been able to put together.
Pet
And I think
project this year. I loved it.
our keynote speakers really helped us make this a huge success. And then I think that
Yeah.
translated into our teachers across the district seeing that it's safe
Yeah.
to present to
Yeah.
colleagues, and so
Yeah,
they're
I
seeing
guess
the
I can
success.
understand that,
That's
yeah.
not easy.
It's
It's
definitely,
not.
and it's a different skill set.
It is.
Presenting to students and presenting to
Yeah.
adults, particularly your colleagues, is really difficult. So
It's
we're
a
gonna
challenge.
probably have some survey, when we put the survey out for staff, maybe have some information or questions in there that help us gauge readiness and whether they wanna have some professional development themselves in,
That sounds like.
how to present to adults. which
Well, working in the
we
same office, I
could
can
do.
tell you, Val put a lot of time and effort into that, and Kathy and Kara assisting her. And it was quite a,
It's a lot of
team
work.
collaboration, and I'm really
Yeah.
glad that it went so well for you.
Yep,
It's good.
sounds good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback on that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we can go all the way down to 6.3, moving on to old business. We have the East Long Meadow High School VEX Robotic World Championship.
No, we gotta do
Oh, did I miss one?
Greece.
Oh, I'm sorry, because I had scribbled it out, like thinking we were going to do it before, sorry. So, I missed it. It's 6.1, the East Long Meadow High School Greece and Italy field trip.
So this is the field trip that has been previously approved. This is the update now because it's happening right during the April break. And the top page there gives you updates on the itinerary, roster, the one day that they're missing, how they're going to deal with safety and security. And then as you go into the information, you get more detailed itinerary and their reservations and so forth.
I make a motion to approve once again the ELHS Greece Italy field trip, April 12th through the 20th.
Okay, motion's made
Second.
and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. And that carries forward 5-0. Thank you. Okay, now we can, what do I do?
Music.
6.2, I'm sorry, the East Long Meadow High School Music Department field trip.
So once again, you have an update from a previously approved field trip. This gives you now the full roster and the full itinerary of what they're doing when the music department goes down to Williamsburg, Virginia.
Oh, that's a lot of kids on one trip.
Yeah,
73.
Yeah.
It's a good amount.
Move to approve the updated music department field trip to Williamsburg, Virginia, April 12th through 15th, 2018.
All right, motion's made
Second.
and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, here, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And that carries forward 5-0. Okay, now it's 6.3, our VEX Robotic World Championship.
Okay, so this is always a question mark because in order to take this trip, the robotics team has to and still has to compete and earn their spot in the World Championship. So this is on the hope that they will do that and be prepared to go. And they break it down. This is Mr. Van Buren, who's the advisor to the science team. And he breaks it down on the letter, after the letter from Dr. Flanagan.
Is that during April break?
No.
It's
Well, this is 4 days of school.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's midweek,
Yeah.
because the other trips are the April break.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But they've done
I
that
know, but
before,
they've done it
They've done
right.
it
I think they've
before.
done it before, and these are usually students in good standing. They've worked really hard for this.
The other thing is to earn this trip,
Yeah.
they put in a lot of weekend
Yeah.
competitions.
Yeah, I
So
know.
they're not missing school necessarily as they go to all these other competitions to get to this level.
Right. And most teachers are understanding and know the students
Right, there's always
well enough.
correct, there's a plan for the makeup work. The advisor has to go through that with the students, and they have to alert the teachers
Yep.
as to what students are going.
I know it's late, it was warm in here, but how many students, it may have been said, but I can't recall.
He feels that there'll be a
3 to
maximum
13?
of 13,
Yeah.
minimum of 3.
3 to
yeah.
13, okay.
'Cause if you only have one team qualify, that'll be 3.
Oh,
And,
wow.
Hopefully, we're gonna have a maximum.
Oh, there it is, okay.
I'll move that we approve the East Long Meadow High School VEX Robotic World Championships trip, April 25th through the 28th to Louisville, Kentucky, pending qualification.
Excellent. Okay, motion's made.
Second.
And second, any other discussion, comments? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay, and that carries forward 5-0. Okay, good. All right, so let's make sure I'm getting all this right. We have to move down to 7.4.
Yep.
Yes, we're
Yeah.
moving on to new business. We have the superintendent's mid-cycle presentation.
Okay, so in your packets and also in the shared folder, I don't know if you've been on the shared folder for the school committee. I have added a folder that's mid-cycle review, much to Mr. Fitzgerald's excitement over there. So I obviously won't read all of this to you. I think what was presented over the last few hours, I hear all those sighs of relief, gives you a good idea of what's going on in the district. There's not too much more I can add because I think it definitely is a team approach. To accomplish what we're looking to accomplish in our SMART goals, it takes all the members of the leadership team, and for that matter, it takes all the people in the district to be going in the same direction. One thing I would just mention as you look through some of the things that are partnerships, such as you heard Dr. Welsh talk about, and some of the things we're starting to move on, especially in Goal 3, I think certainly have a benefit to students in their learning, but as we're finding, and I know we're moving into a discussion on school safety, it has a benefit also in that. It probably has the most impact in the area of school safety. The better relationships, the better support you have for students, the better your school community is, and therefore then the safer your school community is. It's all about, it takes actually every member in the community, students, staff, parents, and so forth. That was quick for me.
Yeah, it was.
Well, there's a lot here, Gordon.
Yeah,
Things
I
are
know.
going well,
Yeah.
and we don't mean to minimize, the things that
Right.
you've done, that the leadership team have done. I
Right.
think we're in great shape here in East Long Meadow, and a lot of that is due to your spearheading the efforts here, so.
Yeah.
I certainly will be willing to sit down with anybody if anybody wants to, has any questions or wants to go through this. What I try to do in the shared folder is you have a Word copy of this, so that if you want to download that and add however you want to get people's comments.
Okay, you can leave it.
Yeah, I like the way we've
Yep.
been doing it the last couple of times where we have, this is our template and then we can add to it or
Just
make
add,
comments
Yep.
on it. I'm trying, did we do that for mid-cycle review?
Last year we did, yeah.
We did, okay. I know, I ask this every year,
Yeah.
because I know at the end, I usually write one up.
Well, we do it for both, but
Okay.
unfortunately, because this is so late, that when you do,
They almost feel back to
they're
back.
they're almost back to back because we do the last.
About 3 months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
but, there isn't.
You can do a lot in those 3 months.
Okay.
I got
Yeah,
patience.
yeah, exactly.
yeah, I
We have to
know.
complete some- So are we looking for what, about a 2-week turnaround?
It's up to you.
Would that give people plenty of time? Are we looking
Yeah,
at like?
2 weeks and then another 2 weeks and back on the agenda in a month.
I know.
Yeah.
That's essentially how it works out.
Right.
Do you want to do it that way, or do you want to have comments for the next meeting?
Probably should have comments for the next meeting.
Yeah, okay.
Because of the timing
Just
is.
keep it on schedule.
Keep it on schedule.
So
Well, that's
do a
what I'm saying,
week.
It's a
that's-
tight
Week and a
timeline.
week then.
So March 12th is the next meeting.
Yeah, so the 5th. You want everything by the 5th. Any changes by the 5th? Would be my thought.
Yeah.
Or around there.
Yeah,
5th or
that's
6th.
exactly it. I mean,
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah?
yep,
Okay.
we will do that. very much, thank you. All right, so.
Move to accept the MOU with the East Long Meadow Public School bus drivers and UFCW.
Hold on, before you do that, did we need to make a motion? Do we-
Nope.
No,
No?
no,
Okay.
we're good.
Fine.
Go ahead.
As presented in executive session.
Second.
All right, so motion's made, seconded, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay, carries forward.
Is that official then now? Are we official on this?
That is official.
Should we make an official announcement? Not that there's a lot of people here, but for those that are.
Certainly.
Okay. We'll be, so next year we'll be looking to have
Next
another
year-
service for busing.
Right,
East
we'll
Long
be
Meadow.
transitioning our transportation services to the Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative. The negotiations and the memorandum of understanding or memorandum of agreement that you just voted on, that was discussed in executive session, really paves the way for us to not only honor our drivers who have given us years of service, but it also helps us start to develop an agreement with the LPVC where we feel most, if not all, of our drivers will end up working for the LPVC and doing our runs in East Long.
Similar to the runs they're doing now.
Very similar.
Yeah,
Right.
yep.
Yeah.
Much more eloquent than I could have said, so thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, and then we're moving down, 7.6, school safety discussion. I know we've already touched on this a little when Dr. Flanagan was here, but I know in light of the most recent tragedy down in Florida, we just felt it was just nice to just have this on the agenda tonight, just so that parents can understand and our community understands what we're doing to keep our students safe and secure in our schools.
So I took the liberty, I guess, just to give some bullet points or talking points as to some of the key components in what we do in the East Long Meadow Public Schools around school safety and some of the planning we do. And certainly the first two bullet points there center in on some of the discussion you heard in the presentation around Goal 3, in that probably the best proactive activity we can become involved in is continuing to do some of the things that we do well, but we can always improve in. And as you can see by some of the things that our principals and assistant principals said, it takes more than just our own personnel, current personnel, to support students and families within the district. And so the better we can get at developing and sustaining good relationships, that's with our students and our families, but it's also with our partnerships outside of the school system, whether that be a partnership with East Long Meadow Police, whether that be a partnership with Bay Path University, whether that be another partnership, something as simple as our partnership with the Rotary Club. You never know what's going to excite or connect with a student, and so that's why it's important to have those partnerships, and it's important for us to continue to improve at sustaining these relationships. With that said, we're looking at, in our budget, we mentioned this is bullet point 2, at expanding the social emotional money that we reallocated from really out-of-district tuitions last year. And so it really serves two purposes. One, it hopefully serves a goal of keeping as many students in our district as possible, hence being able to reallocate from out-of-district tuition line item. And then 2, it gives the schools the opportunity, because it's funding that they have not had before, to look at new innovative ways of supporting students. With that said, we do a lot of planning and a lot of safety drills, and I'm sure Ally can attest to some of the drills that she's lived through in the various grade levels. We have a partnership with the East Long Meadow Police Department that's very strong. Dr. Flanagan mentioned just our meeting last week, but each month, at the beginning of the month, we meet with the leadership team and usually our resource officer, but in those meetings, it's also been our resource officer and Massachusetts State Police troopers. 2 in particular that have come quite frequently are Trooper Andy Canada and Trooper James Carmichael. And with their help, we have not only revamped some of the drills that we do and some of the protocols we use, but they've also, during the summer, visited each of our schools and given us tips and recommendations as to what we can do to improve the safety of just that building itself. So we've been implementing that, and we will continue to do so. And I certainly don't want to minimize our fire department also is an integral part of all our safety planning and our drill work. And we're going to continue that, and not only do we have consistent scheduled meetings, but as events unfold, unfortunately tragic events in the case of Parkland, Florida, we increase those meetings, and we work at, okay, what do we know? What are things that we can implement here, maybe differently? And we'll continue to do that as more information comes out. Just quickly, so that parents are aware, I think they are aware, because if they visit the schools, they know that there's a buzzer system and an intercom system in place, but we have at all our buildings perimeter cameras that can be monitored not only by the building itself, but our police department, our IT department, and we in central office can also monitor cameras within all our buildings. The other thing which I don't think people know much about, but I will mention this, I won't mention where they are, but each of our buildings is equipped with what they call panic buttons. And what that does is our alarm system, if you look at any of our buildings, there are microphones all the way through each of the buildings. And so if someone were to hit that panic button, all those mics go live. And so they're hearing what's going on in the building. It also lets the alarm company know that they should immediately contact East Long Meadow Police, and we've tested that, and it's really within minutes that all of that happens. And so that is something that we have in all our buildings, and we'll continue to. That was something that actually came 2 years ago from a recommendation by the state police troopers. And so we checked our alarm company to see if they had that, and we were able to implement that summer. Luckily, it was something that we could do quickly within the summer months.
Nice.
Mr. Smith, I noticed some schools have practiced an active shooting drill. Are we in that range?
Our drills basically, what we call, we haven't designated them active shooting, but our lockdown protocol, and certainly Ally can jump in, Ally, with things that you may have heard as a student, our drills are changing. And so when we go into a lockdown protocol, basically what we're preparing for is some type of armed intruder. So two things have happened in drills over the last 2 years. One, we want our classrooms, our teachers, our paraprofessionals, and our students working together, working differently. In the past, the protocol had been you basically are quiet and out of sight. We're still quiet, we're still out of sight, but each classroom is looking to gain information periodically, not only through the drill, but God forbid if it ever were a real event, so that they can make decisions within that situation. And I'll just use this area of the building as an example. So if I'm the person who's the lead person in the room, staff in this case, and any students that might be in this area, would be out of sight and basically quiet. But my job would be to consistently acquire information from what might be going on, even though if you had an armed intruder, you would have 3 locked barriers to get to where we end up being. But by acquiring information, we can also make decisions. Now we may want to become more active, and I may want to exit staff. If I gain information that allows staff to exit, I can exit them with students and get them off the property. And so that's where our changes have been. The other piece to that, which has been really helpful with the troopers and the East Long Meadow Police, is not as much this year, but in the year 2 years ago when we did drills, we had troopers, police from East Long Meadow, and resource officers from surrounding towns. And the reason that they do that is because if you, again, God forbid, ever get into a live situation, you're gonna get law enforcement from wherever.
Yeah.
And they will come quickly, and they're all trained to go in basically as I think as little as a two-man team. So the first two on the scene, they're going in. And so those are the things that we've started to talk about in terms of what staff, what students should be thinking about, and what law enforcement thinks. The value of having law enforcement at our drills is that they know our buildings.
Right.
Well said. I don't know, Ally, if
Yeah, it's
anything-
definitely changed, like, in the past couple of years. Like, we used to just, like, sit in a corner or whatever, but now it's more like sit in a corner, but be ready if someone comes in to, like, do something.
Well, it's
So-
sad that we have to do this, but.
Do all of the
necessary.
classrooms have locked doors that lock?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the things that we've changed actually in some of the buildings, I'm not gonna go into specifics because I know we're going out to the public, but we've changed how we lock some of our buildings and our classroom doors. And that's come through some of the scrutiny that we gave as we walked through with the state troopers.
Okay, good.
Great.
Thank you, well said.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll keep a focus on that for sure, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, as always, so
Yes, and
that's
thank you
great.
for giving us those updates. Okay, just moving down, we just want to thank Mr. Mackey for being here this evening. Also thank Ally Stevens. And with that, if we can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
And second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Carries forward to 5-0, so thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you.